Welcome back to another video. My name is Henrik and today we're going to be doing a range test with the updated Skoda Enyaq. As you can see, the 85x, that is something you haven't had before. What this range test is going to be holding is basically driving 100 kilometers at 100 kilometers an hour, 120, 140 and then top speed. Those 100 kilometers an hour are going to average down to around 85 due to the fact that we're going to sitting behind a truck and trying to get the most aerodynamic touches so we can get the most amount of range. We're going to be looking at how long it takes us to drive those kilometers an hour. We're going to see what the range that we theoretically get in total, and we're also going to be looking at what you are going to be paying for driving at those different speeds, while we're also going to talk a little bit about the car. I love this color, by the way, that we have on here. In general, we have the Sportline on here, the 85x, or the all-wheel drive system with the biggest battery that you can get. We're going to talk a little bit more about that once we're driving, but let's get right into it and start off with the 100 kilometers an hour test. So because we are currently nicely behind the truck and we're around halfway there to where we're trying to go, we're going to look at a little bit of changes that happened with the Skoda Enyaq in the updated variant. The infotainment system is a little bit different. You have a couple of buttons which are new. You can now also, which we're going to do as soon as we are getting closer to the charging spot, we can see how fast we're able to charge currently if we do nothing. Currently, we would be able to charge at a max speed of 108 kilowatts. That is not the fastest. We could, however, be able to turn on pre-optimization or preconditioning for the battery. That would take us 17 minutes if we started right now, and then we'd be able to go up to 135. That is also because we are a little bit low on battery, or a little bit high on battery, 37%. You'd want to use it if you're at 10%, then you would be able to charge it a little bit fast. So that is a new feature. Other features, for instance, you have a couple of new buttons up there, but in general, not much has changed in the interior. Quality interior also looking pretty good in my opinion. We got some carbon touches in here, very nice like fake leather up here, which is pretty cool. A little bit more hard plastic on the side, lots of storage spaces, which I do like, and you can also have Apple or wireless charging down there, which is another good feature. If you want an in-detail review of the car, that is also because I'm not currently on the steering wheel. That is one thing that I have found very irritating. You have to jank it around quite a lot to actually recognize that you're holding the steering wheel. Other models, you just do a little bit of this and it detects it. Here you have to really throw it around a little bit. On wetter conditions, that might not be the best thing because you might lose the traction, in my opinion. If you want an in-detail review of the car, make sure to look at the video on the top right corner where we have a full review of this exact model. So we did just arrive at the charging spot and we're at 13% with 52 kilometers left. But one thing I noticed when I was looking in here, if you go into the charging setting and then you go into the optimization, the max speed, it basically shows you current rapid charging capability is 142. It did show 135 and it said it reached the max. So maybe it's not really functioning towards that 175 is the max. Maybe they forgot to adjust it to the 85x variants or the all-wheel drive variants. That this can go up to 175. If I plug it in, most likely it is going to charge up to 175 now, but it just shows you 142. Previously it did say 135 max speed reached. So let's plug it in and see what speeds we get. So let's reset the tripometer and also put our cruising speed to around 120. So we get 120 now. Finally, I can drive a little bit faster, which is nice. Let me also talk to you about a couple of things which I find funny about this car. The press release that we got from Skoda basically claims WLTP between the ranges of 15 and 20 kilowatts an hour. So I don't even know how fast or how much consumption this car has, which is just a ridiculous value in my opinion. I've never had a car that had such a wide spread of range, and that's exactly for the 85x model, so I was a little bit confused about that. So what is new with the 2024 model year, or the 2023, whatever you want to call it? You get the 85x variant now, which is, well, it replaces the 80x variant. The X obviously stands for the the all-wheel drive system. And the other thing that you get new now is instead of 135 kilowatts of max speed, you now get 175. You also get preconditioning for your battery, which I did just use, and it works very nicely. and the max speed I also reached over 175. Therefore, you're going to be able to get a little bit more range. The battery in here is an 82 kilowatts an hour battery, which you can use 77 of, which is quite good. It claims at 80%, it claimed around 460 kilometers of range. So we're going to drive the 100 kilometers now to see how fast we get. Oh, the other thing is the cars also get more performance now. For instance, if you get the RS model, that was previously limited to 299. I did drive that car before, and my main concern about that car was it's not an RS model. It just doesn't feel powerful. Such an heavy electric car just doesn't feel too nice when driving. Now it gets around 340 horsepower. This one, the 85X, now has also increased. Previously it was 265, if I'm not totally mistaken. Now it's 285, something around the range. If it's not, I'll put something down there, but it should be right there. 6.6 seconds now from 0 to 100, previously 6.8 seconds. When I'm driving now at 120, I can definitely feel a lot more wind noise. It definitely does pick up, but it is still fairly calm. Obviously also, that is the steering wheel. It obviously also depends on if you get the sunroof or not, but the side mirrors are fairly big, so you're going to get a little bit more wind noise from that. But otherwise, assistant features just make it very comfortable when driving this. So let's keep going with 120. Our average speed right now is 120, so very nice. We'll see if there's any traffic jams in front of us. Hopefully not, but let's see where we go. Well, as you can see, I kind of jinxed it by saying hopefully there's going to be no traffic jams. Well, there is one, and it looks like it's a little bit of a longer one. Looks to be, can I press on it? I cannot. Why can I not press on it? Usually it tells you how long it is. Actually, no, it doesn't seem to be long. Around 5 minutes, probably extra, or 10 minutes. So sadly, due to that traffic jam, we were only able to get an average speed of 96 kilometers an hour instead of those 120. 120 is still the thing that I put the cruise limiter to, so 120 was often reached and often cruised at. So it's a fairly good estimate if you're using it as a daily driver and driving 120 on the Autobahn. 120, that's basically what I was doing. So we're back on the Autobahn, and now we're gonna do 140. Let's see how much we can use, well, consumption-wise, how far we can get when driving 140. So let's set the speedometer and let's put it up to 140. It's going to engage. One thing I should mention is also, well, I haven't talked about it, we're going to ride everything on normal. We're not going to have anything on eco. We're not going to have the climate control completely off. We're going to put it at steady 20 degrees. It is a little bit warmer today. So yesterday it was around 2 degrees colder, so 21. Now it's 23, 24. So a little bit of a different climate, but those 2 degrees shouldn't affect the car too much. Maybe it should even be a little bit better, but 21 degrees is the optimal temperature when you're driving and charging the vehicle. So 140, we are going to have 98 kilometers left of where we want to go. Around 90 of those are going to be Autobahn. So let's see how much consumption we get in here. One thing you definitely notice when you're driving 140, there's a lot of wind noise coming up right around here. Because of that big side mirror as well, that makes the car just a little bit more louder in the interior. In general, it is still fairly comfortable. I can talk in a normal voice, while I have to speak up a little bit to sound fluent in my head, but in general it feels fairly comfortable. One thing you definitely notice is this car feels very stable at higher speed. So I'm going to have to quickly correct myself on one thing, because I did just notice when the steering wheel tells you, or the infotainment display tells you, put your hand back on the steering wheel, you don't actually have to jank it quite a lot. You just have to put your thumb up on the top. So I think there is something in here that recognizes there's some touching in there. So as soon as you put your hand up there, it recognizes it, and then you don't jank the wheel at all. So that was my fault. I thought you actually have to jank it quite a lot until I put my hand up here and it went away. I didn't notice that until just now, because I took my hands completely off, and as it told me, I put my hand in there and then it worked again. So I've just charged the car up to around 88%. Total range says around 400 kilometers. We are now on our final stretch home, meaning we're going to drive at the max speed, or 180. If traffic allows it. There is a little bit of traffic today, so hopefully we will be able to drive a little bit more faster. So every time there is the availability and the safety that obviously goes into driving as fast as you can, we're going to try to go as fast as you can. You can hear 170 wind noise, fairly high now. 180, I have to speak up quite a little bit, but still completely fine. And the max speed of this is updated now to 180, previously 160, and tachometer, the fastest I've been able to get is 185, which we have right now. That is around GPS 178, 79, so almost at 180. Definitely a nice upgrade compared to the previous one, where you were only able to drive 160. And there we go, we already got the thing, just started off. and we're already, because there's a truck overtaking on the left side, we can't go faster there. Average speed currently 153 and the average consumption a -1. But that's because I just reset the tachometer to have the exact same position that we started and also went off the Autobahn. One thing you got to keep in mind is the journey back. Well, the difference between where I start and where I end is around 50 meters in height difference. The journey is at the end a little bit more elevation change. The first 60-70 kilometers are basically no elevation change, it's fairly flat. But as soon as you get closer on the way back, there's going to be some elevation change, but in general it does flatten out. But the journey back there's going to be a difference of around 10 meters in height, which is a little bit, but it shouldn't influence the consumption too much. And again, this is a real world test. If you're driving in the real world, most of the times you're not going to have a fully flat surface. And we're doing this stretch of highway on every single car that we have, so it's going to average out between all those cars, just so we have a representative configuration for the trip on each car. So it's always going to be the same trip, the same charging location. Yeah. Definitely get a good punch with this 286 horsepower that you get now, and you can definitely overtake a lot of cars. The only thing that is not that nice, you're limited at 180, but that increase up to 180 is definitely noticeable, and you will be able to overtake most of the cars because most of them are not driving over 180. And that is only a problem if you're living in Germany or you're just somebody who drives a little bit faster on the road than they're supposed to in their country. But one thing I hear, there's a lot of tire noise. You can hear that. It really depends on which road you're on. This is a road that is just prone to that. But these tires do produce a lot of that like squealing noise, which is a little bit weird. I haven't had that on many other cars on this road. But then if you're going 180, it's gone. Actually, no, that comes back. Okay, really depends on where you're driving. But at 180, it's quieter than when you're driving at 150. Which is also cool.
Let's now take a look at the results. For the 100 kilometers an hour test, we had an average consumption of 11.7 kilowatts an hour per 100 kilometers. The average speed was 84 kilometers an hour, and the trip took us a total of 1 hour. The total theoretical range that we'd get from that would be 658 kilometers. The cost, this is now calculated up to 100 kilometers. So per 100 kilometers, you would be spending €5.73 with the ENBW 49 cents per kilowatt, which also costs $4.99 per month. For the 120 kilometers an hour test, we got an average consumption of 16.8 with an average speed of 96, and that took us a total of 54 minutes. The total range of that would be 458 kilometers. The cost then per 100 kilometers would be €8.23. The 140 kilometers an hour test had an average consumption of 20.5 kilowatts an hour per 100 kilometers. The average speed was 125, and that took us a total of 43 minutes. The total range was 376 kilometers with a cost of €10.04. The top speed run had an average consumption of 26.1 with an average speed of 137 kilometers an hour, which is actually pretty fast. The trip time took us 38 minutes and the total range was 295 kilometers with a cost per 100 kilometers of €12.79. What do you think of these results? Let me know in the comments. Hopefully you do subscribe for more content like these. This was my first video that I did like this, so hopefully you did enjoy. I tried something out new and I think it is a very informative review. So hopefully you did enjoy. Make sure to like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.